Hi everybody. Do you know all the options that you have available for bus and the wing? Welcome to another quick wing tips. If you like that video, give it a thumbs up. If you are not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe. We talk about the wing and live sound here. Being a live sound engineer that most of the time, let's be honest, work in difficult room because I'm traveling with band and I'm still working with band in bars, in clubs. Acoustic is not perfect. One way that I can help my band overcome that and perform better in difficult situation is choosing the right way to monitor themselves. As a sound engineer, I have the responsibility to help my artists perform the best they can. To do that, monitoring is key. On the signal chain, you can decide where you want to take the signal from to send it into their in-ear monitor or in their floor monitor. On the wing, we have a lot of options. First option is input. This is straight out of the microphone preamp. No low cut, no EQ, no nothing. This is as raw as you can get. I don't suggest you to use that because you have absolutely no way to shape the sound that you're gonna send to your musician other than the bust main out EQ or compression. No, it's there. Sometimes you can have a reason to use it. Second option is between the filter and the gate. When we talk about filter is these here. Low cut, high cut, and tilt EQ. That's going to affect the signal that you send out to your bus, but everything that you do after, gating, EQ, compression, it's not going to be taken into consideration because in the signal chain, you take the signal away, you take the signal and send it to the bus before them. Tap point number 3 is after the gate. I should say after the gate block. Because in our wing, we are really lucky we have way more stuff than a gate into the gate block. So if you have a dynamic EQ in there and you want it to be sent into that bus, and let's say on monitoring you want the dynamic EQ to affect what the performer is going to hear, tab 3 is the option that you want to use. That way they won't hear the change that you are doing in EQ and compression, and you can do and you can shape the sound for front of house and keep it only with the dynamic EQ or whatever you have in the gate block on for the monitoring or that bus send. Tap point number 4, post EQ. This is where you need to take decision. Post EQ tap number 4 is the default of the console because usually you want to correct the source with EQ and send that out for a musician to hear. This is the tap point that I usually use when I'm doing monitor. That way I can shape the signal with the gate and the EQ, and I'm free to do whatever I want with the compression at front of house. It's not going to affect what goes out into the monitor. That way the musician will perform without any compression on what he's listening to, and maybe he will deal his dynamic better. Tap point number 5, post compression. If you know what you're doing, and I would say be careful with that, you can send the signal post compressor into your bus. Be really careful with that because if you are tweaking a compressor and you set the input gain really high and you set the output gain really high, it will send out a massive amount of energy into your bus. The output and the gain out of the compressor will affect the volume that you send into monitor. That way, if you decide that you crank the input and you need more juice for front of house, you are also raising up the volume into the monitor, which will increase your chance of feeding back. The higher you set the input, let's say here on the no stressor, the louder the ambient noise will become, which can also help you feed back really easily. So be careful with tap point number 5. I would say maybe just use that on source that are not microphone, maybe a bass guitar, maybe a keyboard if you need to compress them, but this is probably the option that I would use the less. Tap point number 6, post insert 1. In the insert 1 you have a lot of option. All the effect processor from the effect rack could be applied there. I do not suggest you to apply time-based effect like reverb, delay, flanger on that, and I also don't suggest you to send that into monitor. Some of you may want to do it. I think there are other options, but just know it's possible. Something that you may want to do with Insert 1 is apply an effect like the pitch shift. That way you apply the auto-tune effect or the pitch correction effect. You are inserting an effect block on the signal chain and you send that out into your bus. So if you have the pitch fix on, the singer or performer will hear that in his monitor. It can also be true for other stuff, like maybe you want to use a guitar amp, or maybe you would like to use the body res for an acoustic guitar and you want to send that signal to the performer. You can do that from there. Tab point number 7, post fader. I don't know if you noticed, but here the little icon has become green. That means that we are post fader. What that means is all the signal that we have in this single chain, that means all the block that we have here, the gate, the EQ, the compressor, insert, and the fader, everything that you did there in the fader level will affect the signal going into that bus. It's useful. I use that on dance show all the time for dancers music. That way, when I fade in the music, let's say for dancer, and I fade it out at the end of the song, if they ask me to do a fade out, that will fade the signal going into the monitor. So if the music is really loud on stage and you fade in the room, like I did before, in the stage is so loud that you hear the music on stage and you have to do a hard stop on the song, it's not really fun. The option to use post fader will fix that problem. That way, when you're gonna start your song with the fader at 0, press play, song is starting. At the end of the song, you want to fade out, you just fade out and it will just fade everywhere. Tab point number 8, post processing. Post processing, post insert 2, it's one more step further. Because in our signal chain, in the wing, we have, the gate, the EQ, the compressor, first insert, the fader, and second insert. Second insert is where you would apply a specific time-based effect for one instrument. Let's say that you have a specific reverb that you want to use just for your snare. You're going to set that up into effects number 2, and you're going to set the amount of reverb that you want to have with the effects mix. This is what that effect slot is designed for. You can also do that for pitch fix. Let's say that you have pitch fix as a second insert on your chain because everything else is used before that, and you want to send that out to the singer so they can hear the autotune. It will give you another extra layer of processing, but just be aware that you are post fader here. So when you raise up or down the fader, that will affect the amount of signal going into that bus. We have one more option on our list. If you go into your bus, let's say here I'm going to go bus 9, I'm going to select here the second tab, and we have bus mode. That bus can be by tap point, so you decide from the channel tap point how do you send into that bus, or you can set that bus to be post, or you can set that bus to be a subgroup. First, let me start by post. If we go post and we go back to our bass drum channel 1, you can see here on channel 9 that my little post thing here is now green. That means no matter what I do with the tap point here on the channel, that bus will be post fader. And the last thing on the list is a subgroup. When you have a subgroup, you will see that things are a little bit different. You can see that we don't have any more fader number 9 because all we have now is an on-off function. So it just wire post fader whatever you have into that channel. It will send a whole signal chain after the fader in that bus, and you don't have any volume option. So this is good to do drum bus. If you want to take your drum channel out of the main one or whatever main that you are using, send that into that bus, apply some EQ processing, whatever that you feel that you need there, and then send that bus into the main out. For those of you who stick around until the end, I also have another cool thing that I need to talk about. You saw this the whole time, but you probably didn't notice it. Here in the top right, we have an EQ. When you turn that on, it will give you the option to tweak the sound with the 3-band EQ. that will only go into buses. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you are doing monitor from front of house. You EQ your thing, you set your tap point to be pre-EQ, and the musician give you his input and say, oh, it's a little bass heavy on stage here. Can you turn down the bass on my acoustic guitar in the monitor? It feels too fat. Find the frequency that you want to turn down and turn it down. You can, just for that input, not affecting what you have at front of house, turn down that so you can tweak what you send into buses. This is an extra feature, another extra step that you can use to shape the sound of monitor on stage or in-ear monitors. I hope you now have a better understanding of what the tap point option and the EQ option are for your bus send. Thank you very much for watching. Until the next one, please take care of yourself, and I see you guys later.